Okay. Can you hear me with my mask? Okay. All right. I would like to call the Moab City Council meeting to order on October 8th at 6:03 p.m. And Marcy, will you lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Marcy. All right, next on our agenda, we have public comments. Do we have anybody in the audience that would like to speak during this portion of the agenda? All right, we'll move on to our presentations. And first presentation is Grand Water and Sewer Service Agency to present to us a grant application that you guys will be submitting to the Bureau of Reclamation. So Ben and Kevin.
Oh boy. Good evening. Ben Musselman, agency manager for Water and Sewer. I think I know most of you. And Kevin Clyde, he's board member for the Grand County Water Conservancy District. Okay, as you'd like. Yeah. GWSSA seeks a grant from the Upper Colorado River Basin Conservation and Efficiency Program funds. The purpose of the GWSSA grant is to design and construct a diversion point on the Colorado River near the Highway 191 bridge on Utah State Natural Resources land, locally known as the Scott Matheson Preserve. The desire is to construct a diversion which will be a subsurface design, meaning that the pumping station will be drilled in from the side of the river. So there won't be any kind of protrusion for this in the river itself. But it will go underneath the riverbed from 30 to 50 feet and have several channels drilled in so that the water will actually come to the pump diversion like a well would and be pumped out of there. This will have the capability to pump between 6,500 and 7,000 gallons per minute upon full build out. Initial pumping will be much slower, providing only the Matheson wetlands and the DWR ponds. GWSSA asks for a letter of support and $2,500 from the city of Moab to participate in this project with us. Funds are to hire Sunrise Engineering to provide technical expertise and grant application completion. GWSSA believes your letter of support and financial backing will highlight the value of this project to our combined service areas, meaning Moab City and the Grand Water and Sewer District. Grand County and Moab Irrigation Company have provided a letter of support, and so has San Juan County. And San Juan County has also pledged $5,000. Grand Conservancy District has provided a letter of support and $1,000 towards contribution for the work with Sunrise Engineering. GWSSA has committed $5,000 to fund the preparation of the grant. GWSSA has hired Sunrise Engineering and will provide staff and technical assistance. GWSSA estimates the developing the grant may cost $15,000 total. Now we've asked more people for a total of more money than $15,000, but we don't know who's going to participate and help us in pulling this together. If we raise more money than we need to pay the expenses for this grant project, just getting the grant put together, then we plan to return a prorated amount to each of those entities. If this grant is successful, the diversion project will not require matching funds. It's a no-match grant. The Bureau of Reclamation will provide 100% of the award funding. Grand Water Conservancy District owns rights in the Colorado River. up to 2,500 acre feet of water with priority dates from 1958 to 1969. This is why we're so interested. We'd like to provide an immediate beneficial use of the water that right now just flows past us in the Colorado River, but which we've owned for nearly 60 years. Currently, there is no way for GWSSA to use the water provided by our water rights as it passes through Moab. Water rights were acquired by forward-thinking managers who saw the future need to provide an additional water source for Grand County, all of Grand County. San Juan County also owns water in the Colorado River and wants to access that water, and that's why they're anxious to participate here. A diversion project begins a larger project to benefit the people of Moab City and all of Spanish Valley. A subsequent phase after the diversion is in and water can be provided to the Matheson Preserve will establish a pipeline system and potentially pressurize the irrigation system owned by Moab Irrigation Company. This secondary water system could provide pressurized irrigation throughout Moab City and an alternate water source to Moab Irrigation Company. It could relieve as much as 50% of the water that is provided by Moab City for culinary water, because there are so many people who use it to water their lawns and their gardens. This is the most efficient way to reduce use of the deep Glen Canyon aquifer and conserve it. The final phase of this project will install a system to pump water from the Colorado River to Ken's Lake. Upon total completion, it will connect the 4 water systems in our watershed: Moab City, Moab Irrigation Company, GWSSA, and San Juan County. The benefits of interconnected systems are great, and we have been shown twice. They've been shown twice in the past year. Last October, San Juan Spanish Valley District's pump failed, and they were running out of water. So GWSSA was able to open that interconnect and sell water to them while they're making the repairs. Again in June, when GWSSA pump failed, and San Juan sold water to GWSSA to bridge our need until the system was repaired. Customers of both systems were provided with water throughout each crisis. Let Ben talk about the criteria for the grant.
As you know, I see it on your list later, but the criteria for the grant application are: the project must create waterways, habitats, and ecosystems connectivity, restore streams that have seen increased erosion rates because of drought, and improve water quality that has decayed because of drought. We feel we meet these criteria for the most part in all of these little bits at various times. The first criteria, where historically the Colorado River had flooded the Matheson wetlands, and due to drought, dams, other things that have been constructed, that happens much less frequently now. So the project would provide the water to flood the entire Matheson wetlands, much as the Colorado River used to. So by doing that, we are meeting that criteria of connecting the waterways and improving the habitats and the ecosystems. As well as part of this would fill the Division of Wildlife has those ponds there that they were trying to reestablish endangered species of fish and waterfowl. They had a well. The water in the well wasn't of great quality. They weren't able to pump enough to keep the ponds full. There was a lot of different reasons they didn't pursue that. With this diversion project, that water would be able to be provided and maintain those to help with that environment and habitat as well. Criteria 2 would be restoring streams that have increased erosion rates because of drought. Now, initially, I don't feel like we are strong on that, but the long-term effects would be great. If we got to the point and agreements were made and we pressurized Moab Irrigation's portion of their system or all of their system, agree with the right agreements in place, water could remain potentially in the Mill Creek drainage and protect that, and that helps that ecosystem as well, preserving and reduce the erosion there. And then improving the water quality that has decayed because of drought. The recent UGS study, which has not yet been published, shows the brine layers beneath the wetlands have been impacted in some portions of the preserve due to the ongoing drought and of fresh water through the wetlands. UGS data also shows the brine is moving into the Colorado River from beneath the wetlands. So moving more fresh water from the Colorado River into the wetlands may help suppress the brine layer and increase the health of the wetlands and the vegetation throughout, and decrease the discharge of the brine into the Colorado River. So to recap, kind of, you know, we have this water we'd like to access. We know that you are working with the Nature Conservancy on a grant for the same, basically the same pocket of money. And we don't see that as a problem. I think that our project would complement your project at that point. The challenges with treating the sewer effluent and meeting the proper criteria could only be assisted by having more water to dilute that with and meet those criteria much easier. So while we look for your support and would like your monetary pledge to assist with ours, we also support your going after the Nature Conservancy one as well. I think that they complement each other well, and it's not a competition. Any other questions?
Questions?
So if this project was to move forward past the first phase, I know initially it's set up to help kind of provide water to the wetlands. Would that still continue if the water was being pumped up Spanish Valley?
I think that's a smart business decision, because it's going to take all of us to make this happen, and it improves the scope for everybody involved, all of the users of this water system, and it's going to take all of us to make it work. So we have no choice but to work together. There's no reason we shouldn't.
And in our investigations, the water that goes into the wetlands doesn't stay there very long. It travels through and back into the river quite quickly. Don't know exactly how long it takes, but it's a non-consumptive use. The Division of Wildlife Resources may provide water, but we'd like to be in the position to provide it immediately.
Any other questions? So as you mentioned on our agenda, we'll be discussing our grant application, because we do have, we're working in partnership with the Nature Conservancy. I think you guys are all aware of that. And we'll be asking you to consider approving moving forward with that application later. If you guys have the time to stick around for that topic on our agenda, that would be great. But I understand if you don't want to, we've got other things before that. So it might be a little bit, so.
Yeah, we like to.
I'll
Yeah.
see what time it ends up being.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, next up. Presentation 3.2, David Everett to present fiscal year 23-24 end of the year report and his September 24 financial report.
All right, one second while I get into the meeting. I stole Luke's hotspot, so
Yeah, I can get an app.
we couldn't, either we could get on.
My phone can connect though.
What's that? Okay,
I got in.
both Luke and I might be locked out.
Yeah.
We can leave.
No.
Summer, will you let me in? Not yet. Thank you. All right, let's figure out where we're supposed to be. Good evening, council. Mayor, city manager.
We're not laughing at you, we're laughing with you.
Absolutely. Just here to, this is David Everett. I'm here to provide you with a end of our fiscal year 24 report. I only caveat it with this, that our auditors may come back with a few adjustments here and there, but broad brush strokes, this should be pretty accurate. The information's all in your packet. We'll do that first, and then I'll jump into just really quickly the quarterly financials for the first quarter of fiscal 25. So the upshot really was no big surprises, no major craziness that at least we've identified thus far in terms of budget revenues versus expenses. I'll just go through some highlights really quickly for those of you watching at home in particular. In the general fund, which is the bulk of our budget, the revenues ended up exceeding the projections by about 4%, excluding the sort of inter-fund transfers, which is things like the sewer fund paying the overhead fees to the general fund for administrative work. So it doesn't include those. And with those not in there, we did end up, and without including where the general fund in terms of expenses would also transfer money out, we ended up about 1.5% under budget. So felt really good about that. I think generally broad, again, kind of at a high level, if you're, within 5%, 5 to even 10% of your expenses and revenues, that's a reasonable target to hit. So our estimated fund balance based on where it's sat at the end of the year, it comes in around 30% of the budget of the actual revenues that were spent. So that's good. The statutory requirement is a maximum of 35%. And that's, as you may recall, was one of those issues we ran up against the last couple of years from the auditor. So hope to have had that straightened out ahead of time here. Moving on into our roads fund, we netted out a little more than expected. There was one larger lump sum that came into from the Class C road payment, which comes from the state. And I think that's probably some sort of adjustment that was done based on the city having added road lane miles over the years. And my guess is they did an adjustment after recalculating all that to give us this one-time sort of additional bump. And we also had a delay in equipment purchases, and we've also been struggling to find someone to do some of the concrete sidewalk repair work, the bigger projects, but we have a plan for that going into fiscal 25. At any rate, the upshot was netting out funds that we can certainly use in the future. You all can allocate for road-related projects. In the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Fund, I was really impressed with Bree's revenue and expense projections came in really close to budget. Always want to highlight that the general fund ends up paying about $1.2 to $1.3 million to make that recreation program happen. This is actually, it's going to be bigger this year that we're in because the past year didn't include the parks element of all this, the parks maintenance, whereas moving forward, we've lumped all that into one fund. And so it'll show a larger general fund transfer because of that. In the housing fund, we ended up transferring funds from the general fund to offset the relocation assistance expenses. And that was necessary, not because the fund balance wasn't able to handle it, but because the funds that are in the fund balance were funds that were generated by the Assured Housing program, and we needed to keep those whole and not use those for the relocation assistance program. So the general fund, where you do have discretion in how those funds get used, those funds are transferred into the housing fund for that purpose. The capital fund does show a large balance right now. Because we've been just spending money as we've needed to on the Cane Creek Boulevard project in particular, but we got all of that up front ahead of time from CIB and via the loan and the grant. So that's sitting in an escrow account waiting to be spent or be for us to submit expenditures and we get reimbursed. It's a bit of a process, but we got that down pretty smoothly. So Summer's got that one figured out. It's good times. The enterprise funds are looking healthy overall. The culinary, water, and sewer funds both showed net increases to their fund balances last year. So, particularly due to, I think OB does a great job managing those programs in terms of operational expenses and whatever they don't need to spend on one-time expenses in particular gets rolled into the capital fund to support the network of the network of infrastructure that's needed to support these services. And then the stormwater fund, we finally got to separating out the funds in the stormwater into the stormwater fund. So you'll see in the documents, there's a sort of a large transfer that came out of the capital fund where the stormwater fund money lived, but should have been in the stormwater fund. So we set up a separate fund. It's more of an accounting thing. It's not very sexy, but it is really nice to have that all in one place and a lot more transparent and obvious what the funds available for stormwater uses are. And we say stormwater, that is certainly, related to flood mitigation and flood control. So and that one also showed a net increase in funds for the fiscal year. So overall, those are the highlights. Oh, there we go. One more slide. What else? So we did try to address the fund balance and that accruals issue that the auditors had dinged us on very proactively this year through transfers and doing journal entries ahead of time and really being hopefully on top of that this year. I feel pretty good about it. And that's what enabled us to keep our fund balances where they needed to be from a statutory perspective. Worked with our staff in the various departments to code expenses and revenues as accurately as possible. There's always, there's thousands of those that happen, right? So there's always going to be ones that we need to correct, but I think we did a little better job this year of people checked in with me and they're like, hey, should I code this here or there? And it was a good communication both ways. The auditors have already been here, FYI. Oh, we did talk about that last meeting. I forgot. We do expect them to be reporting back in November. We have a few outstanding documents to get to them. We need to do an impact fee report. Just been working with staff to get updates on all the capital projects that the auditors have been asking about. I think we're in a good shape there. And then last, I just really would note that having some stability on the staff front has been really helpful to have consistency in terms of how we report things and how we work through things, like I said, like the coding of the expenses and revenues, and just an understanding of how the budgets work. So I feel like between Summer and Marcy and myself, we've been able to have a nicer level of stability and consistency there. And this time last year, I felt like it was kind of figuring a lot of things out. I'm still figuring things out for sure. It's a constant learning experience. That said, curve is maybe a little less steep than it was. So I feel pretty good about where we're at overall, and I'd be happy to be done with this presentation.
I just have one question about the audit review and the audit committee.
Mhm.
So I think Michael will be allowed to be on that committee, I think. So we may need to check into that. You were as the interim city manager was the chair and a non-voting member. But anyway, it's something that we should look into. And I'm assuming that you will be calling that committee together. And Tawny, you're on that committee. And then I think Jen Williams from EMS is on there. So if you wouldn't mind checking that out and seeing if we need to find a new member.
We'll do. And then as soon as we get the draft audit report from the auditors, convene that group, figure out who should be on it, convene that group. The auditors will report out to that group. Once that group sees it, reviews it, provides feedback, then the auditors will do a little more magic and bring it to you.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for David?
Yeah. I have one question. I saw that I believe the general fund and also in the housing fund, we have deferred ARPA funding. And I was wondering if you could remind me about if there are requirements about when we need to spend those, what we're retaining those for?
Yes. Those funds were a little bit of a mystery until recently for those of us here, and we did figure it out with the auditors. We have another year to spend those funds, and there's certain, they are restricted for certain uses. However, those restrictions are not so broad that we'll have a problem spending it. I think some of the wires that you've seen dangling from the ceiling recently, in fact, are eligible expenses for those ARPA funds. So we'll be using some for that, for upgrading and putting in, I think, a camera system. You got that right? Yeah. And then there are a couple of other eligible expenses that we've identified that for fiscal 25, we'll be able to spend those funds and hopefully not see that line item in fiscal 26.
Anything else, Caitlin? Anybody else? All right, moving on to quarterly.
Okay, moving on. Yeah, I don't have a presentation on the quarterlies. This is just the quarterly report on our financials. The first quarter is always doesn't really tell you that much, honestly, because it's hard to have any context for it. The revenues do look like they're lower than what you would expect for being 25% through the year. But that is because the sales tax revenues that came in August have already been accrued back. I'm sorry, they came in July, have already been accrued back to the previous fiscal year. So we're basically showing 2 months worth of sales tax revenue for 3 months of time, but that will catch up with that at the end of this fiscal year. So now that we've got all that figured out, that's a great example of this accrual issue manifesting, or that's not an issue, the accrual process manifesting itself. Other than that, nothing particularly stuck out to me in terms of revenues and expenses. This is really, as much as anything, just a snapshot in time, a thing to have on the record. It's a statutorily required report that we, that we do this and come to you and provide this report. So it is all there.
Go ahead, Jason.
No, I was gonna say, I wanted to kind of point out that I've gotten a lot of questions or a lot of phone calls the last few weeks with people concerned that that what's going on with the county's freezing of their property tax revenue. Property tax has nothing to do with the city or the city sales tax.
I called the auditor directly to ask that same question and was assured that our funds would not be affected and the collection of property taxes would not be affected by that for the city.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that's great because I got a couple calls about it.
Fair.
For now.
Anything else? All right. I think we're good.
Okay.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next up, we have Alexi with the sustainability update. And Alexi, I apologize today in pre-council. I totally skipped right over you and I realized that afterwards and I thought, oh, boy. But anyway, I'm sure your presentation is going to be awesome.
Luckily today it's short. It's going to be simple, hopefully. So the sustainability update today is to see if the city wants to pursue a federal community change grant for a project that's tangential to the capital improvement plan, which is why it's coming to you, because it is in pursuit of city goals, but not something that was prioritized in that plan. So we don't want to go after it and spend a lot of staff time on a priority if we don't want to fund that large project and spend time on it if it were to be funded. Okay, so it's in the outline stage and I'll give you a basic idea of what we're thinking about as staff, and then I'd be interested in feedback about whether it's something we want to pursue. It's an EPA grant that the purpose is to increase community resilience through climate action, but that includes green and stormwater infrastructure and nature-based solutions, and they can also augment traditional stormwater infrastructure. It also funds transportation options, preventing air pollution and improving public health. The amount is 10 to 20 million. There is no match. And the timeline is 3 years. So the project would need to be done by the beginning of 2028. So for what the actual project would be is we kind of were scoping out a two-prong approach to stormwater infrastructure. And the first one would look at where rain is falling and passing through private properties, providing technical assistance. And this would hopefully work in conjunction with the fire grant that was providing technical assistance for people. So people would have access to more information about how to prepare their properties, both with things that are more traditional, like a floodgate, or things that are more on the green stormwater infrastructure side, like swales or burns. And then the second part would manage an area on 400 North where stormwater is accumulating over by the school, Swanee Park, that area. And it would focus primarily on 400 North, but also go over onto 100 West and 500 West a little bit. So this was picked by staff because there are drainage issues over there. There's water accumulating in the street, even on smaller events. It's also by the school, which is an issue for active transportation and being able to cross that street. We also have a really wide street there, so it doesn't require any property acquisition to implement some of these changes, which makes it simpler to put forward for a grant. And it would also help with speed management and some connectivity issues with the transportation side. So it would implement stormwater management on that street and upgrade some of those like sidewalks and things like that to help with transportation. So the considerations for the CIP are that 100 West is on the CIP, but it's not the focus of this project. Some of the improvements could be over there, but it wouldn't totally repave that road. It was listed as, I believe, the third priority on the CIP under complete streets. So it needs significant work. This wouldn't do all of that. And 400 North is not on the CIP for 2025 to 2029. It was in the 2020 Moab City Roadway Evaluation of Facilities Plan, listed as fair and listed as priority 5. So the question is, since this would be a large project, it would take staff time and resources in order to manage this if it were to be funded, whether it's something that we want to pursue as a grant application, given that status, but also its applicability to some of the city schools.
Timeline?
The timeline for the grant application is a third week in November.
Oh, so it's like soon.
Yeah, which is why we're on this meeting, because right now we have an outline and a narrative and some of the basics, but we wanted to get feedback before we fully pursue it.
Colin?
Well, I think that while I can see it loosely connected with our current strategic plan, everything that we've talked about and updating and adding another pillar, I see it absolutely fitting in with that. And so I think it's a great proactive approach to something that we're going to be addressing in our next strategic plan retreat. I love the idea.
I would agree, especially dealing with that standing water,
Right.
down there. If we can get $10 to $20 million to help facilitate that, I think to me, it's a no-brainer to try to get these funds.
Okay.
Anybody object? All right. So how will we hear more about this? I mean, is there a process that we need to go through? I mean, I think this council's given you direction to go ahead and pursue it. Would you present the application to us at some point, or how Michael, Alexi, would you like this to proceed?
So we're going to present another grant to you tonight. We're asking you to make a motion to support that. And the reason why we're doing that with that one is we want to show that we're clearly supporting this because the TNC is putting money behind presenting or preparing that grant. With this one, I think what we'd like to know is if there's any opposition, if this is something that you think fits with your goals. Obviously, it fits with the CIP goals. And if you have any opposition to us going after this grant to augment our CIP budget to fix these problems. So I don't think we need a motion.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
Keep us
Alexi, can I ask
Sure.
another more general question? So I was thinking recently about something that Michael had talked about with, the different departments being siloed and trying to break those down and having a little bit more interaction. Can you let me know when we have these infrastructure projects come up as proposals, do they come across your desk to look at all the sustainability elements? Like I'm thinking specifically like the dispersed parking and all sort of the low hanging fruit with that, like curb cuts and everything. Did you have an opportunity to weigh in on that when that was happening?
Yeah, the dispersed parking project came through before I was in the position. So the planning piece of that, it didn't come, position, I presume, was vacant at the time.
Okay.
However, and I've talked with Michael, and my understanding is that the process is changing, or there's more emphasis now on trying to get a full review for in-house staff.
Yeah, I would love to see things coming across your desk and really, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You bet.
Anything else for Lexi? All right. Thanks, Alexi. Next up, we have consent agenda 5.1 through 5.4, consideration of a letter to Rocky Mountain Power requesting improvements to streetlight maintenance on Main Street. And I guess really all over town. This is a letter that you guys directed me to draft, and Alexi did that for us. So that's in your packet. We also have a fraud risk assessment that Marcy worked on. This in an internal assessment. You guys consider this every year. It's submitted to our insurance, the trust, and it is a state requirement. So Marcy's here if you have any questions about that, but this is kind of something that we have to do every year. Approval of the minutes from September 24th, 2024, regular city council meeting, and approval of the bills against the city of Moab in the amount of $377,305.24. Do I have a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Jason, second.
I'll second.
Second by Caitlin. Discussion, Jason?
No.
Caitlin?
No, I sent a comment to Summer in the minutes. But no, I think the letter was short and sweet. I'm wondering if this is all that we want to say or
That's too nice.
Well, that's because Lexi wrote it, not me. I think, let's see what the reaction is.
Yeah.
If we need to get stronger, we'll get stronger.
Yeah, we can add, put your money where your mouth is. later.
Right. And they did, actually, we did get an email from them and they kind of requested that we send a letter. And so this is, kind of a nice way to say, yeah, do it now. All right. I have a motion by Jason, seconded by Caitlin. Any further discussion?
Just one question with the fraud risk assessment, the couple places that we got no's on, didn't get points on, not having somebody on staff with a bachelor's in accounting. Is that what you're in school for, Marcy? Will that satisfy one of those things?
yes, as soon as I'm done with or as soon as I'm done with college, we'll be able to say we have accounting to
Great.
get those points back. But thankfully it's minimal, and
Yeah.
our accounting software does kind of cover us for that because Kyle is a CPA. So we definitely have some coverage as far as that goes for
Excellent.
the fraud risk assessment.
Good work, Marcy.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? All right. All in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right. Yay. We're moving along. Next up is general business. This is consideration of an application to the Bureau of Reclamation Upper Colorado River Basin System Conservation and Efficiency Program Grant for the revitalization of the Scott and Norma Matheson Wetlands Preserve. We've talked about this. This has to do with our wastewater treatment. It's a project that's been on our priority list for a number of years. And this grant is a huge grant that only is available in the Intermountain region area. And Michael, you know more about this than I do.
Sure. So this is the grant I mentioned earlier. And the grant, it would be a joint grant. We would have to be the applicant, but the Nature Conservancy is actually doing most of the work to propose the grant. They're actually paying for Bowen Collins to put together the grant and to submit that with your blessing, of course. The idea is that the Matheson Preserve is, if you didn't know this, the largest wetland of its kind in Utah, actually. And the city, and because, one of the reasons we're applying for this is because of climate change and the difference that climate change has made on things like this wetland preserve. The city actually treats a lot of water at the wastewater treatment plant and discharges that effluent right into the Colorado River. This project would seek funding to construct a tertiary water treatment plant that advances, I'm just going to read their definition or explanation, that advances nanofiltration to remove heavy metals and enhance water quality. The treated water will be directed into the preserve, helping restore the wetland ecosystem, support native species, and enhance biodiversity. So this would be basically building a water treatment facility to take it up to that tertiary level at the wastewater treatment plant that would treat the water, and then it would outfall into the wetland preserve. There would be a gap of the Nature Conservancy would want to use 75% of what's treated or possibly that could be treated out of that plant, that new plant, to go into the wetland preserve. That leaves about 25% that the city could be using for watering parks and things like that. And we would just have to get approval to through this process to be able to use the water that's treated there for the applications that we're looking at, just like we would be doing for the Matheson Preserve. So the grant is, just to give you some information on the grant is the bucket 2 environmental drought mitigation component. And the applications were going to be due in just a few days, but they ended up giving us a little bit more time. And that's why we wanted to get it on the council early, because when we put it on or scheduled it to be on, the grant was due. We thought the grant was going to be due on the 14th of October. But we have until November 22nd now, which gives us a little bit more time to get more information. And we are kind of we have a lack of information, or just we don't have all the information right now, what the design looks like and all that kind of stuff. We are operating off of an abstract because Bowen Collins is still working on this information, and they're in kind of a rush to put it all together. So as I mentioned earlier today, if you'd like to, we can bring back more information, and you can look at this at another time, table this until you get more information. But basically the motion today is just saying that the council is okay with the city, or the council is okay with the Nature Conservancy putting together the grant, in that if they do that at their expense, that when they give it to us, we commit to applying for this grant jointly, or for them, but it is jointly. So again, November 22nd is the new date. The eligible projects are projects that provide environmental benefits or ecosystem and habitat restoration to address issues directly caused by drought in the upper Colorado River Basin. The available funding is $450 million, and the minimum project size is $300,000. There's no match required. They do encourage it, however, and we have 5 years to complete the project after it's awarded. So, and we should find out in the spring of 2025 if we get our application in, and you agree to that. Ben was here earlier and talked about the grant that they are doing. They're talking about doing something or applying to the same pot of money. There's one thing that he said that I think, I wish he was here, but he said it's not a competition. Well, we don't actually know that. The way that the money is going to be dispersed, I don't think we have in front of us anything that says that that having 2 projects in one community is not going to be a factor, and that kind of stuff. So just keep that in mind. I don't know if you have any questions for us about this or the other grant. I don't know much about the other grant, and so it looks like WISA has vacated, but I'll try to answer questions if I can.
Questions? I think it's important to understand too that the Nature Conservancy is supporting WISA's project only to the level that it's going to provide water into the sloughs. They are not supporting the other aspects of it, which is kind of a duplication of what we're doing. So I just wanted to make that clear to you all as well. So questions, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess that is my question, is I'm trying to understand the difference between these two. I mean, I understand generally that they're both to serve the wetlands, but I don't know enough about this world to understand like the technical differences between the two. And
Yeah, I think as far as I understand it is like the Conservancy doesn't make up all of the wetlands. And so like their project would help flood like the other portions of the wetlands. So like similar projects, but kind of potentially actually like working in combination with one another will cover more area of the wetlands.
And I also think, and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, I think part of their project is also to prove up their Colorado River water rights, because their water rights on the Colorado River are junior water rights. And so I think theirs is more of a long term. I mean, they're looking at the long game to look at pumping the water from the Colorado River out to Spanish Valley and, you know, helping with Moab Irrigation Company for secondary water source. So both important issues, but I think that's long down the road
Yeah, and so
and very expensive.
yeah, I think this grant application is just for the phase one where they would be
Right.
like putting in the pump for the wetlands. I think there's going to be a phase two of this grant where they might, that's where they said they would potentially look at implementing the infrastructure to pressurize the Moab Irrigation Company system so that they don't have to rely on dams basically to.
Yeah.
But yeah, after that, I don't know what their plans are to obtain like the funding, the easements and everything else to eventually bring things up to the valley.
Questions on our application?
So on our application, we wouldn't, well, I guess we probably could find reasons to do the second phase, you know, especially if we were gonna take 25% of that water and the 25, 75?
25.
Yeah.
75 goes to the wetlands, 25 can be reused and stuff. So I guess we would probably, I could potentially see us applying for the second phase to then put in water storage for secondary water systems, you know, which,
Right.
right? So,
Yeah.
I know a major thing for us was that we need to do is figure out that outfall, right? That's kind of been on our list for a while. And yeah, so I mean, I think for us, this needs to be a priority, you know, is this, because it's doing that outfall, which has been on our CIP list for quite a few years. You know, we need to figure out a way to fund that and stuff. I guess I don't have an issue with signing on to both of them, you know, if we think that it's not going to hurt our chances, you know, and stuff. And I guess we don't know that.
Yeah, and I'm sorry.
And so but I can also see too that it's two different agencies within the same valley. You know, they're speaking for a lot of different water users, you know, San Juan County, you know, Cowessa, you know, Moab City kind of coming at it from a bunch of different agencies combining in on it, where we're kind of looking at it as it was just be us and the Nature Conservancy on this one. So I do think that I could see some distinction when you're looking at the applications that are pretty, you know, that they're not similar.
Right. And
Being geographical.
right. And I should clarify, you know, they're only asking for a letter of support. They're not asking us to be the applicant. They are, yeah, just point that out. So
They're asking for letter of support and $2,500.
oh yeah, $2,500 too.
Yeah, that was new. I think the reality though, Jason, is only one of them are gonna get funded. You know, I'd be very surprised if both projects got funded, because we're basically asking for the same thing. So even though there's not competition, I would be surprised if they both got funded. But that's just my idea. Because there's gonna be, my understanding is they anticipate over $1 billion of applications coming in. So, you know, there's gonna be a whole bunch of other states and cities and counties that are gonna be applying for that money. So I would be surprised if they would fund two projects in the same.
Yeah, I would say it's not out of the question though. Like the Department of Homeless Services offers up a grant for like emergency housing assistance and like relocation assistance. And we had 3 organizations in the community apply for that grant and all 3 of them got it. So like, I think it's really up to what the grantors are looking for out of these projects. And if there is a narrative about like long-term stuff that might play a factor into it. But in terms of like our grant specifically, since like we are going to be the ones that are applying for the grant, Like, we're ultimately going to be the ones that are going to be responsible for any reporting and sending out like reimbursement requests and everything. Do we know like approximately how much staff time that?
We don't, not right now. And like I said, we're working off of an abstract right now. We do know that the project is estimated to be between 12 and $20 million. That's a pretty big gap. That's basically the best we could do for this meeting, or the best Colin Collins could give us for this meeting. So we do have a little bit more time. If you do want more information or need more information before you do this, we can bring back more as it's developed.
Well, I guess I'd be curious as to like, what the strategy of the Nature Conservancy is and why they would sign on to Gwis's request as well as write their own request for this one, and it'd see like, are they favoring one project over another project in this thing, or
David's had the conversations. Why don't you come up?
This is one that I started, and then Michael gets the benefit of getting to deal with moving forward. Certainly the initial conversations with the Nature Conservancy, this is the one that we're talking about now, that's the city, the one that will be authored by the city at the end of the day, is very much their favorite. That's what I was told directly. Like, this is the one that, they're very excited about. As to why the strategy around supporting both, I can't speak to, but I know they were super enthusiastic, and it was their initiative to do this one.
Right.
I mean, it makes sense that the people applying for the grant are excited about the grant.
Yes, indeed. But I think it's fair to say they don't view them equally.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's important to point out, and you're right, Jason, that outfall pipe has been on our CIP list for the better part of a decade.
Okay.
And it's just continually gotten kind of pushed to the back because it wasn't emergent and there wasn't funding. And I think it's important that we follow our own quote unquote rules. It's there, it's a priority, and this is an opportunity to fund that project. And this is a Bureau of Reclamation. Who knows what they're going to think?
Mm-hmm.
They could fund 2 projects in one valley. They could say, oh, no, you can only do 1 in each state, or they could come up with something cockamamie at the last minute. But my brother worked for the Bureau of Reclamation, so I'm
like from a Colorado River Basin point of view, I can't help but think that the wetlands is not a big deal. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the wetlands, this is the biggest or the only wetlands on the Colorado River system.
correct. Yeah.
So it's a huge environmental gem, on the system that is going away. So I think that it would be a big deal from the Bureau of Reclamation to go like, oh, here's 2 projects that could possibly, save this wetlands preserve in entirety.
Yeah.
And which if you're looking at it from a wetlands or from a, I don't know,
From an
environmental standpoint. it's a
yeah.
big deal.
Yeah, I think it could be construed that way.
Yeah.
So
And to Michael's point, I mean, 2 grant applications are going in. And I think that it's would behoove us to write a letter of support for the GWISA grant. And
I guess-
In return, get Quissa to write a letter of support.
Yeah, have we asked them if they would write us a letter yet?
Before the meeting, Ben said that he implied that they would. Ben doesn't. He's not the board, but I think that's generally understood that they would do that.
Okay.
And one question really quick. Are you talking about writing a letter, just basically adopting the letter that they gave to us, or writing a qualified letter as far as we're supporting the wetland portion or the entire.
I don't think that's what's up for discussion right now. I think. right
Oh,
now
oh,
we're
yeah, you're
talking
right.
about
Yeah.
our application, and I think we have to have, I think you and I will talk more about that.
Okay.
And then it'll come before you guys on another agenda, because we've got time now. I think we were pretty anxious because we thought the timeline was the 14th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason I didn't put the letter on this agenda, so that we could have a bigger discussion about, because they did give us a draft, and I kind of feel like, just to answer your question, we should write our own and not just a
Mm,
letter that every other agency is gonna have.
Yeah.
But I certainly will work with you guys on that. But in terms of this agenda item, are you guys, I'd like to have you make a motion to consider this application, giving Michael and the Nature Conservancy the go ahead to start the application process. You already have, but this is just kind of making it clear that you guys are behind it.
The only thing that would concern me is you say right now you're operating on an abstract, and I understand that. If, if anything really, a real red flag popped up, would it behoove us to just table this to another meeting, or with the caveat that we support it unless there's something really,
I think we'd still have to approve the final letter.
right? Well, we'd still have to approve the
Application.
the application.
Michael, how do you see that working out? I mean, I look at this as you guys are just giving Michael direction to move forward. But if you want to table until you can see the full application, that's an option too.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go with that. We're moving forward basically and giving the Nature Conservancy the assurance that they were in this in good faith. And I think what you said tonight does that. Doing the motion would just give them, just gives us a little bit more direction, but also, just giving us general direction is good as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that general direction makes sense because the motion basically says that we grant approval for the city to apply
Right.
for the Bureau of Reclamation.
Right.
So like
Okay.
the motion is to apply for it.
Just read it all out.
So is that?
Well, no, I think there should be like a modification to it where like
Oh, okay.
we move that like the city council like grants like the city like approval to move forward with the application process, upon which we will make a final determination like if we'll submit it or not, like based on like a summary of like the final completed
Yeah.
application.
I think that creates too much uncertainty for the Nature Conservancy.
I think it works just fine, and we can bring it back. I guess it'd be the first meeting in November, and we'd have a lot more information. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
like that.
So can you repeat your motion, Luke?
I move that the Moab City Council grant approval for the city to work in collaboration with Nature Conservancy to in their application for the Bureau of Reclamation Upper Colorado River Basin System Conservation and Efficiency Program grant. And then waiting or without like approval to apply until we get a view of the final grant application.
I'll second.
Sorry, it's circuitous.
So did you get that, Summer? I think maybe we want to say at the end with, final approvals for submission of the grant.
Yeah.
To come before the council.
Yeah.
In our November meeting. So it's kind of like a combination, you're approving and tabling at the same time.
Yes, so approving moving forward, but tabling the actual applying.
Right. Summer, we can work on that language if you want. All right. I know what he's referring to. So, Jason, you second that motion? All right. Any discussion, Luke?
No, I did explain it much more clearly initially, so sorry about that.
That's okay.
The one thing that I would just request is that we kind of look into making sure that any staff time that is taken, if we do apply and do get awarded the grant, that we can kind of dip into the indirect funds to cover any sort of
Right.
staff time that's used towards helping administer that grant.
Yes, I'm writing that down.
Any, Jason,
I don't know.
anybody else?
I look forward to seeing a scope of work so I can conceptualize what this looks
It's
like.
all about. And even then, it'd probably be over our heads. It's a really good thing, I think. And so appreciate the conversation. So thank you guys. All right, motion by Luke, seconded by Jason. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, next item, 6.2, consideration of a task order for professional services for the 100 East Roadway Improvement Project in the amount of $159,300. This is the road behind City Market. This is one of our, Mark, you want to come up, make a presentation? This is on our CIP list, and this is the next project.
Okay, yeah, this'll just resurface the street along 100 South there. We'll look at uranium as well. Initially, we'll just plan on doing a mill and overlay there unless the geotechnical comes back and says we need to replace the entire section of the road. The surface right now looks better, so we may just be able to do a surface treatment with that. We are not planning on doing any new utilities under that road. That being said, in the shorter term, the next several years, there's always the chance that a water line bursts out there and we've got to damage our new road a little bit, but we think the utilities are in good enough shape that we don't need to go replace them all wholesale. Yeah, we'll be looking at complete streets design out there. I'm hoping that we can fix the situation with the curb and gutter with the existing trees and preserve the existing trees. We're going to look at that and hopefully be able to figure out something there. May involve moving the curb line out, narrowing the street. We'll balance that against the need to accommodate the large trucks for delivery to City Market as well. So we'll have to accommodate them and keep their driveway open. That will probably remain a wide driveway. Improve the ADA for the ADA condition of the sidewalk out there, which may also involve adjusting the curb line out there, having something like a park strip so that we can move the sidewalk around those driveways. Driveway crossings end up being an issue with their ADA compliancy. We'll look at doing a bulb out on the far south end at the intersection of 100 East and Uranium. We won't be looking at doing any new landscaping exactly. We're talking about doing park strips, but we're not, at least as part of this task order, we're not doing the plantings as a part of that. So we could do a simple gravel treatment or something like that. But as of now, we're not planning on doing any irrigation or new plantings.
Questions for Mark?
I just want to say, I'm really glad that we are looking at this as a complete street. And I think that there, in my opinion, there are only a handful of streets that, in our community that we should really be looking at as complete streets. And this being one of them, being in front of the school. So,
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
So I guess my question is like having these guys design. How do you come up with 159,000? Is it like 10% of the estimated cost? It seems like if we're going in and just putting in new pavement and doing this stuff, that 159,000 seems like a lot of money to have someone that designs.
Yeah. So as you know, we could always go out to RFP for these things. For every project we could always go out and have an open bidding process essentially. That just consumes a lot of time and effort. In this case, we do have civil science under contract to do this sort of work. What they do is they go in and there's some details in that task order that lay out, we'll do some public meetings, we'll travel, and we'll do these coordination meetings. They assume some particular number of hours for design, and they have engineer 1, 2, 3, landscape architect, although there's not going to be a lot of landscape architect on this project, but you have a variety of different roles. They'll put that in a big table And out of that, you'll get a cost, right? Because there's just an hourly rate for each one of those roles. And then what ends up sometimes happening is, of course, you can go over that budget. Took longer than we thought it was gonna, so that's always a possibility. We try for that not to happen, and usually it doesn't happen. Usually our consultants are pretty good at getting it done in the hours that they think it was gonna. And sometimes we even come in a little under budget, and we have a little bit of money left over at the end of the project. But it's always a little bit of a educated guess going into it. Yeah.
So we feel pretty comfortable with the amount. If it was 10%, we're looking at a $1.5 million project there. And I think we're above that. We're above a $1.5 million project for uranium and 100 East. And we are talking about curb and gutter replacement in some areas, a large area that will need design. We are going to be looking at the entire roadway and the active transportation element down there as well, and ADA elements. So there will be some design. If it was just paving, I totally agree with you.
But like, what is like, can you explain to me like what the complete streets element is? Is it just creating green bicycle lanes?
No, it's basically just ensuring that all modes of travel are adequately provided for on the street. So your walking and wheeling network. So whether you're walking, riding a bike, a wheelchair, a scooter, or whatever it is, can operate on the street. It doesn't have to be green bike lanes. It can be just having a bike lane or having a shared street for that matter in some situations. Some of the other things we're going to be looking at, like Mark talked about, was the bulb out at that intersection, which is also a connection to the school. And with the bulb out there would also be enhanced crosswalk. We could look at some signaling there as well if that was necessary. I don't know that it is based on traffic counts. And then also that cars and buses can access it as well.
Will this complement the rural road assessment, safety assessment?
The SS4A or
The RSA that we
Yeah,
did.
the RSA.
oh yes. Yes, it will complement it. The RSA focused on Main, on the highway, and it did bring up the intersection of uranium and the highway, but this doesn't actually go into the highway. This project doesn't.
But it is a great opportunity for connectivity where, we're looking at, that one pedestrian crossing in front of City Market as being a, pretty active thoroughfare for students from that side of the community coming to both the high school and the middle school.
Right.
And also I anticipate that south intersection, like I would guess that's going to need a bit of a redesign. Because
It is.
you have the high school and the middle school both
Right.
coming out and viewing them.
Well, and we shouldn't discount that the intersection also goes into that parking lot there. So there's two parking lots. It goes onto the south side of the school and then into the front of the school. But bringing up the point of the RSA is really good because there's a potential that we could leverage what we're doing here to get UDOT to maybe make some improvements quicker at Uranium and Main Street to complement what we're doing. So that's a really good point. Doesn't add to this project as far as dollars go, but the fact that we're doing it could maybe get them to move a little quicker on that section.
I think similar, different question, other side of this project, is how this is we're also talking about the 300 South Bridge. So if there are any considerations of how those two tie in together.
There definitely will be considerations, and we will be bringing that task order to you at the next meeting, and we can talk about that stuff then, but we will be coordinating with the same consultant. We will have a different design engineer for the bridge that we're proposing as far as structural goes, but civil science is looking at managing that project as well for us.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is that they would tie in together and there will be some impacts with the new bridge there.
Yeah, that intersection will likely be First East and Third South will likely need to be redesigned because of that.
So when I'm looking at the work scope of work outline, things like design survey and base map, 16,100 lump sum. engineering design, 133,300 lump sum. So those are not time and materials. Those are just lump sum. Like we're spending $133,000 just to have them do the engineering on it.
Right.
Period. You know, so the only place we could really save money on this is if we were to like project meetings, management. So when we say like project meetings, are we gonna have like meetings with the public? You know, like, hey, what do you guys want to see? Kind of like we did with King Creek.
Yeah, I believe in this, pardon me. I believe in that scope of work. It describes two stakeholder kinds of meetings. One would be just an open public meeting, and the other one would be an internal meeting, potentially council and other staff.
I would imagine those meetings would include the schools.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and possibly even city market and
Right.
yeah, and anybody else that would be impacted. Yeah.
I'll admit I have heartburn over the 159,000. I think the locals just want the road paved, you know, and they don't want, you know, they want it to be safe and everything like that, but it's like, they just want a paved road.
Yeah, I'd add to that, way back, right about when I first started here in 2015, 2016. I remember this being a topic of conversation then. And I remember meeting out there and seeing the curb and gutter was all heaved up from all the trees.
Yeah.
And the discussion at that point was, should we talk about tearing out the trees so that we can repair the curb and gutter? We're still kind of at the decision point. And so I think some of this discussion around this project grew out of, you know, we could go back and just pave the road. Do we leave the curb and gutter in the shape that it's in? Do we rip out the curb and gutter and the trees and put it back in place? And so, so far as I see it, we kind of have ended up where we are because, you know, we could go in and just do the road, but the problems kind of bleed out from that a little bit.
I guess I can also tell you that I'm actively looking at design of a road that's a similar, and I would say that this feels reasonable for this scope and this like construction budget as well.
For a design of a road or for a repaving of a road, you know?
This is for design.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess mine isn't a new
You're starting from
road.
scratch.
Yeah.
You
So
know, this is taking a road and going.
Yeah, if we were just going to go replace the road in place and rebuild the section, that would be probably terrifically cheaper. Yeah, for sure. That would be a much simpler project. We're not adjusting.
I agree. Like I drove down there today and spent some time, you know, on that road. And yeah, the curb and gutter needs to be replaced. It's heaving up where those trees are. You know, I get that, but like the rest of the street, it seems like just needs to be paved. You know, there's just one section that this kind of seems like that needs some attention with what to do with those trees.
Yeah,
you know, and how to accommodate the new curb and gutter that needs to be replaced.
Yeah. And we also, I apologize if I didn't, if I kind of gleaned over this a little bit, but we also have some ADA compliancy issues out there that we're going to be looking to fix with this.
All right, I'm going to ask for a motion.
I move to approve the attached task order for professional services with Civil Science Inc. for the design of the 100 East Roadway Improvements Project in the amount of $159,300 and authorize the mayor to sign it.
Motion by Luke,
I'll
second
second
by
that.
Colin. Any discussion, Luke?
No, I really do appreciate the ADA focus on it. I was thinking about like a kid at that school who's in a wheelchair. Like that'd be a terrible thing to try to roll across right now.
Yeah.
And then kind of just moving more towards like a community that's a bit more tailored, or not tailored towards, but accommodating of active transportation. I do see a lot of people who ride their bikes to City Market to pick up groceries and end up riding away, and that's got to be a pretty rocky way out there.
Colin?
Are we focused on this project happening when school is out?
The day the school gets out.
What's
Yeah, we would likely be doing construction right in the middle of spring at this point.
Would we? Okay.
Yeah, you know, if we get design early winter or late fall and we go out to bid and maybe on a very accelerated schedule, we could be done by the end of winter, but you know, typically we also don't, we'd have to wait for the asphalt plant to be open to do that portion of the work. And so we're probably doing it in the spring. Yeah.
But it'd be tough.
Jason, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I think this project's gone on long enough that it could probably wait until the day the school gets out and be like a summer project. You know, so. Anyway,
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think I agree. Most people just want roads to be repaved. I think this is such a busy place for kids, people going to school. Most locals that I know take that back way to go to City Market. So I think doing a safer and more complete rehaul of this area is a community benefit. Would love to just do some bread and butter repaving in a lot of other areas, but I think this one's important. I think, I mean, could we request a time and materials bid, or you think
I think we could.
in the same amount? I don't have a problem with the amount, but just based on billing rather than doing lump sum.
Yeah, we can certainly reapproach him about that. Yeah.
Connie? No. Any other discussion from you guys?
So just to clarify, like the cost benefit of a lump sum versus time-based bid is lump sum, even if it takes them extra time, like we just pay what was the agreed upon amount.
Yeah, they were supposed to deliver a product for the lump sum amount. The time and materials, I mean, you could still do time and materials not to exceed a certain amount. So there's still a control in there.
All right, we have a motion made by Luke, seconded by Colin, to approve task order for professional services with civil science in the amount of $159,300. Roll call vote. Caitlin?
Aye.
Colin?
Yes.
Connie?
Aye.
Luke?
Aye.
Jason? All right, motion passes 4-1 with Jason in opposition. All right, moving on. Next item, what are we? We're at the lot line adjustment. Corey, this is you. Consideration of adoption of resolution 26/2024, a resolution approving the Lover Ridge Acres lots 9 and 10, a lot line adjustment petition for property located at 481 Lover Ridge Drive and 621 Mill Creek Drive, Moab, Utah, 84532. This is another one of those administrative items that you will not be seeing after December 14th.
10th.
Yep. Basically, this is a simple lot line adjustment to correct a fence line
Correct.
or
Yep.
something like that.
Right.
You want to give us a brief?
Short briefing is that this is a historic subdivision, and then with the development of the two single household properties, the historic fence line is not aligned with the platting. So as the current owners are looking at developing their properties further, investing, they just would like that to be realigned. And as you can tell, it's kind of off of an axis, so no one owner is getting, significant benefit. They're just really a realignment to a fence. So very standard, and hopefully you won't have to entertain these types of smaller things too much longer, but for a couple more at least.
Okay, motion?
I move as Moab City Council approve Moab City Resolution 26-2024, a resolution approving the Love Ridge Acres lots 9 and 10 lot line adjustment petition for property located at 481 Love Ridge Drive and 621 Mill Creek Drive, Moab, Utah, 84532.
Motion by Tawny, second,
I can second that.
second by Colleen. Discussion, Tawny.
No.
Colin?
Just want to say, if we're not going to see as much of Corey, can we come up with other reasons that Corey has to come in front of us?
Yes,
Or-
that will happen.
I think you'll see plenty.
You'll see plenty of Corey in the future, so don't worry about that. Corey and his whiteboard is not, are not.
That's right. I heard strategic planning earlier, so I'm already prepping.
Right, good, okay. Anybody else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tori.
Thanks, Corey.
All right, next up, we have consideration of a MOU between the city of Moab and Grand County regarding the Atlas Park Committee prospective planning efforts and resolution number 27-2024, a joint resolution of the city of Moab and Grand County for the cooperation in site analysis, preliminary planning, master planning efforts related to the Atlas Park. This is something that I've been talking to you guys about for a long time. The city and the county are working together to start our planning process for the event when the DOE is closing that site out there. And that we want to work, this is one of our collaborative efforts that we want to put forward with Grand County. They approved this resolution at their last meeting. And so, Michael, do you have anything you want to add?
Just adding that the council did approve a staff person to work on this to help us move forward so that we can apply for the grants next time around. And the MOU basically just outlines how we're going to work together, how we are going to manage that position, but we're going to work together with Grand County because we both have the same goals, and the resolution helps track that and backs that up and makes it a little more official.
And just for clarification, this is separate from the Moab Tailing Steering Committee, which is providing oversight of the DOE in that project. So this is completely different from that. This is our own city-county effort to start our planning so that we're not 20 years down the road and trying to figure out what we're going to do.
And the county signed this at their last.
Yes.
Yeah.
They approved
Yeah,
it.
they approved it.
Yeah. Unanimous. Motion?
I move that Moab City Council approve resolution number 27-2024 and the accompanying MOU between the city of Moab and Grand County regarding cooperation between the agencies for the Atlas Park Committee prospective planning efforts.
Motion by Luke, second.
I'll second.
Second by Tawny. Discussion, Luke?
No.
Tawny?
No.
Anybody else? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Our last general business item. This is a reconsideration of a contract award for the complete abatement and disposal of asbestos containing materials and structure demolition services at 737 Mountain View Drive. Contract to Eagle Environment for $247,118. David is going to present this, but we are basically reconsidering the contract that you guys approved because there were some process issues that were identified. And so we just need to kind of take that off the table for now. David.
What she said, basically. We, as I indicated to you all, we've identified, some information came to light after the agenda item was passed by you at the last meeting that from a staff perspective, we feel we need to correct before a bid gets awarded. We may end up in the same place, we may not, but that's where we want to make sure we're obviously doing it right, and it's not a small sum of money. So this was our bad. We missed a couple of things that we should have caught and we didn't, and I own that for sure, and we'll get it fixed. I think the motion to reconsider is just sort of is what the language is in the rules of procedure, but it basically means you're rescinding that approval for now, not doing a new approval of any kind at this point, but rescinding that approval, and we'll come back to you with a new recommendation for approval, hopefully soon.
And also in the rules, it did require legal review, which we got from Nathan, and he is approving of this reconsideration. So
yes, and Mayor, just to be clear, technically under the rules, it says at the time of reconsideration, if a motion to rescind the action is made and seconded, the city attorney shall provide a legal opinion to the council on the subject prior to any action. So I can do that now. Just under our rules, we can make a motion to reconsider when the motion is first made or at the very next meeting, which we are. And we would need a motion from a council member who voted in favor of the motion. My understanding is that the last motion was unanimous, so any council member can make a motion to reconsider.
great, thank you.
Okay,
Motion?
I'll make a motion to reconsider the awarding of the contract 737 Mountain View Drive.
Motion by Jason, second.
Second.
Second by Luke. Discussion, Jason?
No, I guess I'm glad you guys found this there. Appreciate that. And we'll go on from here.
Luke?
Nope.
Anybody else? All those in favor of reconsideration, say aye.
I,
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. David, any idea when we will be reconsidering a new contract?
We are actively working on figuring that out this week. I'm hoping by the end of the year.
Great.
End of the year, the fiscal year, or sorry, the calendar year, because we only have three more meetings, right?
Yeah.
So that's the hope and aspiration.
You'll get it. You'll get it. All right, moving on. That's the end of our general business. We'll move on to Michael Black's city manager's report.
Good.
Here
Thank
go,
you.
Michael.
First, a report item or first update is this is my first update as city manager. So I've been in the position for a little over a week now. I've been meeting with staff and getting to know the department heads that I'm not as familiar with, but meeting with everybody and starting to talk about the transition and moving forward, and seems to be moving pretty smoothly thanks to David and all the department heads. It's things are going really smoothly, I think. So a couple of other updates. The police department had 2 positions open for police officers. They hired 1 position, leaving 1 still open. They hired recently Alex Thompson, who has 15 years of experience with UPD, Unified Police Department, and most recently he has worked in Roosevelt, Utah. And so this is a lateral move where we have an officer coming over who already has experience, and it just so happens that this officer has worked with a lot of the officers that we have here on staff already. So that's a bonus. Our admin and engineering staff attended a meeting with Bowen Collins that was organized by the state of Utah that is looking at Mill Creek and flooding mitigations that could be done along Mill Creek. There's a lot of work going on there. They're looking at from a very high level. We are still working with the county and Bowen Collins and our staff to discuss all the things that are being proposed, and we will continue to work on that. I'm not going to present the options here tonight, but just to let you know that we are looking at some things that we will be bringing back to you to talk about as far as mitigations go. This is a different line of analysis than what we're pursuing with the work that we're doing that we've talked about previously with 100 West and 500 West, 300 South Bridge, and then all the other things that we're working on currently with the NRCS and other things. So this is separate from that, but obviously related, and they all complement each other. The downtown dispersed parking project, I think we're finally able to see kind of the benefit of it, and with the striping going on and the landscaping and everything. The lights aren't in yet, but we're starting to get signs in. Things are looking really good. In my opinion, I think things are functioning well as well now that there's a little bit more detail to how things work down there. Striping, signage, crosswalk markings are currently in progress, and they should be finished in the next few weeks. Landscaping should take place and continue to be installed throughout the fall and potentially even a little bit into the winter. So there are streets that have not been landscaped yet. Doesn't mean they're not going to be. If there are questions, we can answer questions for you about what's getting done on which streets. And last thing I'll bring up, just to make it quick, the pool hours are changing. And if anybody has questions about what those hours are, from what I understand, there's different hours every day. So I don't think it would do a lot of good for me to list them out. So please check out our Facebook or website for more information.
Great. Thank you, Michael.
You bet.
Council reports. Jason.
Had a couple meetings that I attended this week. Attended an airport board meeting. Not a ton of stuff going on at the airport. The airport director was sick, so I don't think we didn't get the stats from the last month from there. But they are working on contracts with hangar spaces up there and land leases and trying to come up with what needs to be done. They replaced some fencing that was taken out from the flood. and are working on some other improvements up there to kind of expand some of the airports like that. Today I attended a travel council meeting, and travel council was kind of looking at doing some winter marketing to see if they could kind of boost some marketing efforts there. One thing that did come up in this meeting that I thought was pretty interesting was that, Grant County in 2019, there's some stats that just came out from the KMC Garden Policy Institute. And in 2019, Grant County saw about $434 million worth of tourism spending that year. And 2021, the height of the year, we were at 537 million. And then in 2022, it dropped down to 470 million. And in 2023, last year, we're down to 440 million, which is about 6 million off or above 2019 and stuff. Some interesting stats is that Grant County is one of the few counties in the state that is seeing a decline in tourism. You have other counties like Duchesne County, for instance, or Emery County is seeing about a 7% growth in tourism. Duchesne County is seeing about a 10% growth last year and stuff, and we're kind of seeing a drop. So it's kind of concerning, and hopefully we can get back on the right track.
Do you have a user? Is there like a user? Is an increase in a certain activity in those areas, or in a decrease?
It doesn't show that. I can send you guys. I'm happy to send you guys all this report.
That'd be great. Yeah, that's great, Jason.
And because I thought I just barely got it right before this meeting, and so just looking at it, it was pretty.
Yeah.
So anyway, there is a opening on the airport board, and there's also an opening on the travel council board. So if anybody out there wants to join a couple of great boards, now's a good opportunity to put your name in the hat for those. And trying to think of what else I did. I think that's about it.
You started to smoke.
What's that?
You started to smoke.
Not yet. That hasn't come yet. I'm not starting to. I am growing a sweet mustache for Halloween. Colin's already made fun of me. I thought it was going to come up tonight, but
Well, he hasn't had his turn yet.
I know exactly. Yeah,
We'll go right. Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay, Colin.
Okay, so I just want to talk about Jason's mustache first.
If I turn this way, you can see it.
Yeah.
It's there, yeah. It's the right light. It really. No. So I, on the 26th, attended a solid waste meeting. Really exciting stuff, building policies, 2025 budget. Also a board vacancy on the solid waste board. On the 30th, I took part in something really cool. The Wish for Wheels organization worked with a bunch of local businesses to donate a bicycle to every second grader in Moab. Luke was there. It was an amazing program. And I just have to say that there were 3 of our police officers there, and that was for me the absolute coolest thing to see some of our police officers literally teaching second graders how to ride bikes for the first time in the grass behind the school. And then once all these 100 second graders were on bikes ripping on the parking lot, it was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. I did witness one crash, but so proud of our police department, seeing them out there just working with the community and really talking about how invested they are and how much they want to be seen, how much they want to be out there and be involved. So thanks, Chief. Work. To yesterday, the 7th, I had a meeting with some consultants and some folks from the county, talking about some very early planning for to present to UDOT for the pathway extension out to the new state park. So that's really exciting, and that is something that is going to be happening sooner than later. Great asset to this community in the city of Moab. And then today I had a trail mix meeting where we just finalized our recommendation to the BLM. I'm sorry, actually to the commission and then to the BLM for how e-bikes will be introduced to some of our non-motorized recreational trails in the community. That is it.
Thank you. That bike thing was the coolest thing. I gotta
That was-
say, what a neat thing.
It is going to be so amazing when people can travel, by bicycle to the state park.
I'm talking about the kids. second
Oh,
graders.
oh yeah. Also, I felt my heart grow too.
Oh, yeah.
It's
It
like
was-
just
that
watching
was
these
very
kids.
cool.
Yeah.
Luke,
Yes, Colin had mentioned, I also participated in that event and echo so much of what he said. It was really great seeing the new patrol sergeant up there. And yeah, it was a really amazing experience to be a part of, and just seeing all the different reactions from the kids out there was great. And there was a kid who was like screaming that it was the best day of his life. There was another kid who said that he already had a bike, but he knew somebody in his neighborhood that he could give this one to. And so, yeah, just really cool to be a part of that entire event and to see kind of different corners of the community come together to help out with that. I met with the mayor last week, and then I attended the KZMU Radiothon event at Woody's this past weekend, where I came dressed up as Mozart, but was mostly called either George Washington, John Adams, and I had somebody quote Abraham Lincoln to me at one point, which is a little bit off, but other than that, I have my LHC meeting tomorrow, but that's all on my end.
thanks, Luke. Caitlin.
On the 28th, I attended Street Fest, which was super fun, Red Rock Arts Festival. It was hot and so a little less attended than I've seen in previous years, but staff did a great job, and seems like people always really love the art walk, seeing the new exhibits, so exciting. I had a meeting with the mayor. On the 3rd, I attended a Moab Area Housing Task Force meeting. Of note, Corey was there. Corey's gone now, but yeah, we discussed at length a scope and potential budget to create a community housing data dashboard, which will be incorporated into moabhousing.com, which is a community-wide resource for housing. If you haven't visited moabhousing.com, highly recommend it. And so this would be an ongoing dashboard to show both qualitative survey information about what housing looks like in Moab, tracking metrics for how we're accomplishing our housing goals, and also providing updated data about our actual housing market. So that led into a larger conversation about the general scope and kind of work that the Housing Task Force does. So I think we'll be doing a little bit of scope and mission alignment for the task force in the next couple meetings. On the 7th, yesterday, I attended a community renewable energy board meeting. We approved resolutions regarding termination fee structure and opt-out noticing for the upcoming renewable energy program with Rocky Mountain Power. I guess not technically Rocky Mountain Power, but in general, those termination fees will be about $30. It'll be $30 for residential or for small customers. For residential, if a customer leaves service or is eligible for low income, that termination fee would be waived. And then there's a couple of different categories for fee structures for larger customers or for outdoor lighting or other lighting features. And additionally, Rocky Mountain Power should be sending a solicitation application to the Public Service Commission to continue moving forward with program rollout. In general, the last few weeks, I've attended a couple of one-on-one meetings and some gatherings with commission candidates, and would love to remind the public the Chamber of Commerce is having a debate at Star Hall at 6 o'clock on Thursday. I think in general, I really appreciated that a couple of commission candidates reached out to me to have a meeting. I'm really looking forward to continued partnership, growing partnership with the county moving forward into next year, whoever those new commissioners may be. And then just some general info sharing. USU's NAR initiative is having their base camp here next week. I think it's going to be great. Highly encourage people to attend, and also kind of it'll be throughout downtown. So, you know, additional impacts to traffic congestion. Community Rebuilds will be having their haunted house fundraiser on the 26th, and they're looking for volunteers. And that's all that I have.
Thank you. Connie?
I don't have a lot. I had a conflict with the Housing Authority when they had their meeting the 19th, I believe it was. So I didn't get to that meeting. I met with the mayor and with Luke, and that's really about it. I've got a meeting with the Healthcare Special Service District Thursday.
So when is your retirement party?
I'm not planning my own party. I don't know.
It's coming up. It's coming up. That's great. Thanks, Tawny.
I've planned parties out there for 15 years. It's somebody else's turn.
All right. For me, I sent you guys all the information from CERTA regarding the revolving loan fund for businesses that are interested in getting a loan. This is from the $400,000 that the county put in into the revolving loan fund as part of their economic diversification program that got removed. And they were able to establish this fund. So there's $400,000 available. Corinne Olson from CERTA will be at the Grand Center on Wednesday, October 30th, Friday, November 8th, and Friday, November 22nd. I encourage any businesses that are looking for a loan to reach out and get more information from them. It's a great opportunity for some of our businesses. And I sent you guys all the flyer. Please feel free to share that with anybody you know that's interested. On that same note, we had a AOG CERTA meeting at the Grand Center. It was here in town, which was great. Part of that meeting, including the nomination of Bill Winfield, the Grand County Commissioner, to serve on the CIB board, which will replace Bruce Adams. This will need to be approved by the governor and then confirmed by the state Senate, but I expect that to happen. And I think it's really good for us to have a local elected serving on that board. I don't remember a time in my tenure that anybody from Grand County served on the CIB board. So I think that's a great opportunity. Subsequent to that, I met with Commissioner Winfield to discuss possible collaboration ideas. Of course, flood mitigation is on the top of that list, and that's something that we'll be talking about in the future. I also met with the CIB board chair, Curtis Wells, and to talk to him about some projects. I wasn't quite sure if flood mitigation could be supported by a CIB application. He assured me that it could. So this might be an opportunity for something for us to discuss, to work in collaboration with the county on flood mitigation and get in the grant from the CIB to move those projects forward. We have openings on the planning commission. So and Lisa's going to be putting out an advertisement and recruitment for people on the planning commission and also on the RAPTAC committee. So again, if anybody out there is interested in any of those boards, please put your application in. And if you guys know of anybody, I think I've already told you this, but reach out and let's get some good applicants on our planning commission and the RAPTAC. And on Monday, it's Indigenous People Day, and there's going to be an event at the Youth Garden Project. Jason, as the pro tem, has agreed to read a proclamation in my stead. I'll be out of town that day, so thank you, Jason, for doing that. And then on the 18th of October, there is a tour of the Las Colonas site out in Grand Junction that you all are invited to attend. It's a way for you guys to kind of visualize what's happened at a similar project to the UMTRA site. So if you're interested in that, please let me know, and I will RSVP to Barbara Michelle at DOE to let her know she'd like to know who all's going to attend. It's a really good opportunity to see what can be done, and it's very similar to what we're thinking about doing. Their site is much smaller, but they have a nice amphitheater there. They have like a river park, and so there's this a lot could come out of that will help us when we move forward to planning for the site here. And that's it from me. And with that, we need to go into closed session to discuss strategy, to discuss reasonably imminent or pending litigation. And if I can have a motion to go into closed session for that purpose.
Motion to go into closed session
For
for reasonable or imminent litigation.
motion by Tawny, second. Second by Luke. Did you say yes? Okay. Discussion, Tawny?
No.
Luke? Anybody else? All in favor?